fun tonight. All right!
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity, where we talk about drinking culture, pop culture, politics, and anything else that comes up. Joining me as always is Brandon.
Hello, my people.
Jim.
Hey, everybody.
And Kale.
Hello, television fans.
Hello, television fans, indeed. So today we are going to talk about our top 5, maybe and then some television theme songs, entrance theme songs, not entrance theme songs, just theme songs. I can talk. I know words. Brandon, but before we talk about TV, let's talk about drinking, which clearly I need to do more of. What are you having tonight?
Sure. I am having some chai tea with a little bit of cream and just a splash of rum.
Fair enough. Jim?
I am having bourbon sweet tea.
That sounds good. Kale?
I'm having Tito's and V8 Splash Fruit Medley.
You mixing those in your mouth?
The handcrafted vodka,
whatever the red solo cup. Nothing but class.
The definition of class. Tito's in a red solo cup. I still
Jim,
have.
Is that Peter Dinklage in space behind you?
Yes.
I don't think so. And since I still have a ton of orgeat left over, I'm having another Mai Tai, because a Mai Tai is just a great cocktail. I didn't tout it enough when we did the episode, which hopefully you either have just seen or are just going to see. It's somewhere in the lineup around when this episode is going to come out.
So what you're saying is you might have orgeated a little bit.
Shut up. No, it's got a great creamy mouthfeel. It's thick, but it's not icky. It's an incredibly balanced cocktail. And it also is a great opportunity to mix your rums around a little bit. Like in this one, I'm kind of making the same one I did on the video. So we mixed a rum agricole, which is a French rum from Martinique, and a Jamaican rum, which I think actually go together really well in this cocktail. So since we have had our cocktails or begun our cocktails, Brandon, why don't you start us off with your number 5 favorite television theme song?
Well, you were saying about how many you actually came up with, and there was some that just made my list as soon as I thought about it. And as we go through it, I'm sure you guys will come up with others that I was like, oh, I should have done that. But the one that went right off the bat, what I first thought of was Matt. There's very few theme songs, I think, that stick in your head, are iconic. I mean, there's not even any words. There is to the original song, but to the actual in the show, there isn't any words there. And it's just, every time you hear it, you can picture the helicopter coming in and Hawkeye and whoever running up to the helicopter and tending to the wounded and all that. I memean, you can picture the entire thing, and I can hear nearly the entire theme song in my head right now. I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's at least number 5. Maybe could have been higher, arguably.
So I want to say this was on my list as well. I'm gonna replace it for those who's first turning into one of our top 5. Sometimes we'll move our list around a little bit so we can talk about different things. I think MASH is a great theme. We talked sort of last week about wrestling themes and kind of a pop. Now, TV themes don't have to have a pop because they're not introducing one person walking out. But MASH definitely does that. Just those first few notes. It's just so iconic, and like you picture the actors running up the helicopter and all the other stuff, and it's got this great combination of kind of whimsical and sad at the same time, and it's great. Jim, you a MASH fan?
I was a huge MASH fan. Yeah, I agree. It's absolutely, if it came on, you would absolutely know what show you were going to watch.
And
Jim,
Kale,
calm down, Jim. You are going crazy.
I know, crazy.
No, MASH is great. Yeah, suicide is painless, and you don't hear the words. But I think the real interesting part of that is that historically speaking, the Korean War is known as the Forgotten War because it was between World War II and Vietnam. And bringing some attention to that, I think, was important. Not just that it was a good show, but the fact that what it was about.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out and maybe make some people angry. Not only do I think MASH the show was better than the movie, I don't even think the movie was particularly good. I think the movie is massively overrated, and especially how certain parts come off as very oddly mean spirited. And yeah, I think I watched the movie and I was kind of surprised by how much I disliked the movie, especially compared to the show, which I thought was great.
Do you think it's kind of a book movie thing? Like if you had seen the movie first, that you would like it better?
No, I mean, I didn't like it. I mean, even as a movie, because I think I can generally separate between the two. I didn't enjoy it. I thought the characters came off as like all the characters in the show that are in the movie that are supposed to be the good guys are assholes. Like they're kind of shitty people. I mean, Hot Lips Houlihan doesn't really do anything and they harass her constantly. Frank Burns in the movie isn't that bad of a guy. He's kind of officious, but he's not like a mean person. And they're terrible to him. I mean, they're bad people. They're just bad guys. And I found myself getting very mad at their characters of like, no, these people shouldn't, they're bad. They're bad guys. And no, I don't like them. I don't like these people, Sam I am, except for Radar, obviously. Brent, I don't know. What do you guys, show versus movie? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just real quickly.
Sorry, I had myself muted. My pup is mad that he's in the kennel. No, I completely agree. I think there was some moments of the movie that weren't like bad, but I don't know. It was mostly forgettable, especially compared to the show. The show is 100 times better. It's better cast. You were saying they came off as mean, and there isn't any of that. There's a lot of like. With Hawkeye, you feel more like he's frustrated a lot, and he gets fed up with things, but he's never mean, and he doesn't, he's got a line. He doesn't go beyond that. And also, even for somebody like Frank, he doesn't go too far.
Well, also in the show, Frank is kind of a lot more of an asshole in the show. And so when they do play pranks on Frank in the show, you sort of feel that that Frank has kind of earned them a little bit more. I don't know, Jim Cale, do you have any thoughts on movie versus show?
I've only seen the movie probably once. It's been a long time, but I don't remember particularly enjoying it.
I've seen
it has some great actors in it, but
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Cale.
That's it.
No, I was just gonna say I've seen the movie a couple of times. Yeah, but like Jim said and Brandon said, it wasn't as good as the show. I feel like we're veering off here because we're supposed to be talking about the themes. But real quick note, there was an episode where Hot Lips Houlihan and Hawkeye are supposed to be going out into the field to go save a soldier, and they end up getting bogged down in artillery fire and find shelter. And that episode in particular is very interesting to me. I remember that one very specifically because it's talking about very real things about like, we're not combatants. We're out here to try and save people. And in the meantime, these guys are trying to kill us and like they're getting really close.
Yeah, I remember that episode. Jim, we'd probably talk more about Max than we should. What is your number 5?
The Twilight Zone.
That's a solid pick.
Yeah, kind of a creepy instrumental number, and the voiceover for the show, giving you kind of the intro, is just really classic for me. It's one of my favorites.
I feel like if Mike gets involved in some heavy editing on this episode, there's going to be a lot of dancing with copyrights.
Yeah, that's definitely a consideration. Oh, YouTube. If only you knew what fair use meant. I mean, you do, but you pretend like you don't.
Just don't do it.
Nah, Twilight Zone's fantastic. I love how minimalistic it is. And I think sometimes for things to be really creepy, like, like if you want like a heroic theme, then you want something that's like big and huge and kind of, voluminous. But for really creepy, minimalistic is good. You have like this sort of thing you see in a lot of horror movies of like several voice choirs that are just doing like sort of minimal notes in the background. And in this case, Twilight Zone, you just got the Nanu Nanu, not from Mork, a different Nanu Nanu.
Yes,
And it's just, yeah, it's great. It's and a great show, a fantastic show. I mean,
yeah, just the first two notes they play, dun 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 dun. Like if you heard it on your TV, you'd be like, I know it's coming. Something creepy is coming.
yep.
Did it?
You could even say something wicked this way comes. And actually, I think that's probably the first horror show. Because I can't think of anything that really, I mean, Alfred Hitchcock Presents maybe was around the same time, but Alfred Hitchcock Presents was never like straight horror. It was usually more like there's like mystery with a little bit of horror too. Yeah, also a great theme song. Alfred Hitchcock Presents also a great theme song. Brandon is busy taking care of his puppy, so I will speak for him and say that he also likes the Twilight Zone theme, because I know he likes the Twilight Zone theme and the show. And yeah, it's great. It's just some fantastic episodes. I feel like we could do a whole show just on that show.
I never watched the original show, but I did watch the movie. And in the movie, they did make
no.
What?
No. The movie, first of all, the movie is incredibly tragic because an actor and 2 children were killed on the set of the movie. Which
it's
is
the Twilight Zone,
right? But the movie wasn't great, in my opinion.
Kale, you really need to find a Twilight Zone
in the part of Captain Kirk.
Yeah, that's the one they did. John Lithgow, right?
Yeah. And then, like, I remember the part with the kid that could make things happen with his mind or whatever. I really like that.
But in all those cases, the original episodes of those were better than they were on the Twilight Zone movie, in my opinion, and I think in the opinions of a lot of people. And you can find Twilight Zone. I'm telling you,
I'm not arguing.
There's almost every Twilight Zone episode is at least good. Like it's at least like the worst Twilight Zone episode is okay. Kale, what is your number 5?
Well, I had to change my number 5 because tonight I had my list put together, and then my significant other decided she was going to come in and be like, "Did you put this on it?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Did you put this on it?" I was like, "Damn it!"
Kale, it's funny you mentioned that, because as I was walking in to record, I talked to Vanessa and I asked her if she had any honorable mentions, and we talked for like 10 minutes right up until record time. And I came up with like 6 other shows that I were like, how did I not include those?
I completely missed these. All right. So I do have a list of honorable mentions that I'm assuming will leave between 2 and 1.
Yes, I have significant levels of honorable mentions as well.
So I'm going to start out with number 5, and that is We're All Right. We're All Right.
Stop.
Hello, Wisconsin. That 70s show. Just a fun intro. Like they got all those characters on screen, they mix them up, and I really like that show. And even though he was by far the worst Venom in history, like that was a really good show, and I thought it was well acted, and it was fun. And I'm looking forward to that 90s show. Spoiler.
What was the name of the actor, the one who played Venom? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Topher Grace.
Topher Grace. He, by the way, was a very serviceable David Duke in BlacKkKlansman.
He was also in a movie with who's the kid that played Lex Luthor?
Oh, you mean he's got his own podcast now.
He does.
Oh wait, are you thinking of
Not Gene Hackman. I
one of these days I'm going to go through our episodes and just clip out all the times we're like, that guy, that one that was in the thing, with the other guy who was in the other thing.
The place.
And that's
I thought you were going to say clip out all the times you said not Gene Hackman.
And that's like a full 2-hour episode right there.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the guy who played Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Something like that, where he was supposed to be a sleeper agent. and like somehow he can kill a bunch of people. And I will reiterate that if you put Jesse Eisenberg, I think is his name, and Michael Cera in the same movie, that the world will explode.
Just create a singularity.
Yeah.
By the way, I think Topher Grace was terrible in that Spider-Man movie, but also he was just incredibly miscast. Like he wasn't that character and anything close to that character. It was a very strange casting for Eddie Brock. A character who in the comic is like a chronic bodybuilder, like musclehead kind of guy, and then they cast Topher Grace. It was a very strange decision. Brandon, you liked that 70s show, didn't you?
Yeah. I can't tell you I remember its theme song too well, but yeah, I thought it was a decent show.
Jim, that 70s show. I don't think I ever watched an episode, but Jim, did you watch that?
Really?
Never watched an episode. I know what show you're talking about. I know the actors that were on it. But
I've seen clips here and there, and of course, one of my favorite people on Twitter says there's always an Iowa connection, and of course, that starred somebody from Iowa,
yeah.
Who later went on to Punk People.
Is his name Ashton?
I believe it's something like that. All right, I'm going to go ahead with my number 5. So this is one, like the way I do my list is I'll just like write out a long list of all the episodes or all the shows that I can think about. And then I'll start checking them off. And one that's like, it kept not getting checked off on my list because I couldn't check it off. And I was like, well, if I not being able to check it off my list, it should be on the list. And so that is, thank you, Dick Wolf, Law and Order.
These are their stories.
Because I think that exactly like I feel like anytime you think of like cops or lawyers, you're like, bum, 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 bum. Like it's impossible.
I just think of that noise.
Right. Or yeah, like the little in between scenes where there'd be like the dunk thing. And it's like, yeah, it's iconic. It's not the best thing, but it's certainly iconic and you certainly can't forget it.
You
Brandon,
can't get that out of your head.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I was ever arrested, I would be humming that on the way to the police station. And then it's also been made fun of in tons of things. We're probably at some point in the near future going to talk about Community and Rick and Morty. And so in my rewatch of Community, there's a Law and Order episode where they essentially spoof Law and Order.
We'll talk about it then, but I actually think that's one of the indicators of the show going downhill was that one.
Well, we will certainly talk about that. And how you might be wrong about that. But, Jim, do you like Law and Order? Do you watch it? I feel like everybody watched at least a little bit.
It's been forever since I watched it, but I watched a fair amount. My favorite Law and Order movie, memory for me is like 20 years ago. I was living in Seattle and I had started watching a Law and Order episode, and I'd watched at night, a few nights over the last few weeks, I had watched a Law and Order episode, and my wife just got up and like, what, do you not want to watch this? She's like, it's a really good show. It's interesting. It just seems like somebody always dies.
I think she's right about that.
She is right.
I'd have to check the figures, but I think that's accurate.
But there's a Law and Order for everybody too. Like Annie watches SVU all the time. I was a big Criminal Intent fan.
It's weird. Criminal Intent is when Vincent D'Onofrio really sort of came to television. Like that's the first time he sort of came to TV. And yeah. Anyway, so I'll stop talking Law and Order. Brandon, let's move on to your number 4.
Okay. My number 4, I'm going back in time a little bit here to the Andy Griffith Show.
The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith.
Man, talk about iconic. You can't you can't whistle that tune without instantly knowing what it is. And I don't know. It's very simple. Like they just say the Andy Griffith Show, and then they hum that. It's like 20 seconds. You see Andy and Opie out, like coming back from a fishing trip or something, and that's it. You're done. End of story.
And it actually
short and it's catchy.
And it imagines a time when cops didn't carry guns or want to just shoot everybody all the time. Like
Yeah.
in today, like Barney would be would be the conservative one. You know, he would be the one who's like, hey, let's be civil. And like he would be like the farthest sort of to the left. And in Mayberry, he's kind of like the loose cannon.
He's got that bullet in his pocket.
Yeah, the one bullet. And Andy doesn't really trust him with it, but
Now, let's just talk about this.
I feel the same way about cops today. They should get one bullet.
they
like,
should
it's in
keep
the
it in their pocket, preferably of a shirt they're not wearing.
No, it's in the car and it's locked in the car.
Preferably in a car they're not driving.
I have to say, I don't know if I've ever watched an episode of the Andy Griffith Show, but I do know that when I was younger, it would be either after or before cartoons. And so like you'd turn on early and hear the ending credits, or you'd hear the beginning credits after cartoons were over. And I can't remember which is which. So I've heard either the intro or the exit theme like a million times.
It's the same.
And of course you know it well.
Well, yeah, obviously. Jim, do you have any Andy Griffith thoughts, or would you care to whistle anything?
No, I'm kind of like you. I've seen the intro, seen snippets of the show. I've probably seen a show or two. It just has been forever.
By the way, there is a fantastic movie which I recommend to everybody called A Face in the Crowd, starring Andy Griffith, where he basically plays like a Bill O'Reilly character, obviously long before Bill O'Reilly, who has this sort of media empire. Watch that movie again. It is very much a foretelling our times. It's kind of a remarkable movie. So yeah, Face in the Crowd, Andy Griffith. Jim, what's your number 4?
Similar, maybe a little bit newer than the Andy Griffith Show, but not a lot. Gilligan's Island.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship.
I like the tune. I love that it tells the origin story of the show. It introduces the entire cast. It's pretty campy. Just all around pretty good TV show tune.
I have to admit, I don't think I can tell you what I know that the theme song is very, very important and a lot of people love it. I cannot begin to tell you. I know it's the SS Minnow and they're
on a
storm.
3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. You'll
I
have to
realize
listen
its
to it.
importance even if I don't share its importance.
Yeah.
Brandon or Kale, what about the SS Minnow or its occupants? Any thoughts?
Let's see. There's Skipper and Marianne and
Ginger.
Mr.
I watched it here and there as a kid.
I don't know. All I know is the doctor can make stuff out of coconuts.
He was the first MacGyver.
You mean more than coconut?
Rocket backpacks out of coconuts.
They had metal detectors made out of coconuts.
I just think it'd be funny if he came out and was like, look, I made coconut.
It's like watching an episode of Ancient Aliens. They're like, look, they made these magical things out of rocks. He made a metal detector out of coconuts.
How? He could make a ship.
The magic television.
Yeah, everything. He could make a fully loaded submarine, but just not a ship that would get them off of the island. It's the one thing that he's not quite capable of. All right, Kale, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is not on mainstream TV, but on a service, Dexter.
That's a solid theme.
I believe is played on a harpsichord, which if you don't know what that is, think Munsters or the Addams Family.
Or Bach.
It's very much like an organ or piano. And it's just a really creepy sound. And the way it's played in the intro and the visuals during the credits of the intro, it's very intense. And like, because it shows him doing very mundane things, but then those same actions, it shows him doing very efficient things at ending someone else's life.
So I was going to mention that when you brought that up. I think of all the shows we've watched where the visuals are closely tied to the theme, Dexter very much is, because the things he's doing, like he's like when it shows him tying his shoes and he's like
garroting a guy.
The only thing I have to say about Dexter is stop watching after about season 4, because it really starts to go downhill very quickly. And the new Dexter, wow, I didn't like that a whole bunch. Brandon, we watched a lot of Dexter together. What was your thoughts on the theme or even the show itself?
The theme is really good. I think there's a kind of I don't know what you would almost call it, like a classification, like a themes that are kind of closely related. I would say like Dexter, True Blood, and American Horror Stories all have kind of a similar aesthetic to them.
I think Dexter's more like quietly sinister, though.
What Brandon's saying, though, is that like, okay, the writers came to this person and said, "This is what we need you to emulate," and the music professional at that point pretty much nailed it. I think is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they just go together very well. Like, I can't picture that song without picturing the visuals. Like most theme songs, you can sort of picture in a vacuum. But I think Dexter, you picture the whole package. Jim, did you watch Dexter at all?
I have not watched Dexter.
Watch 4 seasons of it.
What?
I'd stop. 4 is the one where the Trinity.
Watch the last episode. You could watch the last episode.
I would not watch the last episode.
I wouldn't either.
In fact, I would watch maybe everything but the last episode. And then they just came out with a new series, which I was quite surprised how, like, it's sort of amazing. Not to get off topic of the theme, but this show is about going off topic, so it's fine. So Dexter ended. It's probably one of the worst series finales of any show ever. And then they brought it back for a 10 episode or whatever it was run on back on Showtime. And they somehow managed to make the new series finale as bad as the original series finale. And I thought that was really talent, or the opposite of talent in action, that you could somehow make a new show that makes all the fans mad all over again for being a terrible ending.
I don't know who was clamoring for a new 10 episodes.
Well, I think there were a lot of fans that were, because they wanted to see a real end to the show, like a legit, because we all know how the show's supposed to end. There's one way the show ends, and that's Dexter gets his comeuppance, because he's Dexter, as much as we like him in the show and all these things, he's a bad guy.
Housewives love watching murder shows, and they think Dexter is attractive.
No, I don't think that's. I think people wanted a legitimate end to the show, and they came out with a new series, and it didn't give it that. So it's very frustrating, because there's a lot of talented people on that show. I mean, Dokes is just great. Dokes is like one of the biggest assholes who's ever been on television. And he's built like a tiny bomb. He's built like a small just bomb who just walks around just like exploding at everyone. He's fantastic. Everybody in the show.
Jimmy Smits is really good.
Jimmy Smits is good. Although I think that's season 5. That's after peak, but it's not bad. It's not where the show sort of slid down, but it definitely, I think, is after peak. That being said, I think those first four seasons are really good, and I think they're Michael Hall's great. You know, everybody's great in that show. Although the one uncomfortable thing is he met Jennifer Carpenter on the show. They play brother and sister. Got into a relationship, got married, and then got divorced in the space of the show being on. Which that's just got to be some comfortable, scene shooting towards the end.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go on to my number 4, and let's face it, there's no way we were getting out of here without a Star Trek theme. And so I was going through all the Star Trek themes because I was going to add one because I love them. I think actually Star Trek Discovery, which I have problems with, has a really good theme song. And I like Deep Space Nine's theme song a lot, but Next Generation is just, I think, hands down the best.
To boldly go where no one has gone before.
Television theme for any Star Trek show. And it's just like, it's so kind of puts you in the mood for what's coming with a Star Trek show. It's very kind of upbeat and exciting and like explory, whatever that means.
Should have known you weren't going to go with the original.
Well, you can't because the original was good.
Aren't they all the same?
No, they're not. They're all different. And by the way, Enterprise, which I love Enterprise. Oh man, that theme song sucks. Worst theme song by far. By the way, Jim, have you listened to the theme song that they're using in Strange New Worlds?
No.
Because it is very much inspired by the theme song from the original series. It isn't exactly the same, but it's very similar. So I don't know. Next Generation. I know you guys all watched that show.
Is that supposed to be during the same timeline as the original series?
Well, to step outside a little bit, yeah. So Brave New Worlds, which is filming actually, well, the first episode comes out in a couple of days, which is going to be a couple of weeks ago for people watching this, is so it's Pike. It is basically taking place between the Star Trek, the original series pilot, and the time when Kirk takes over in the sort of second pilot when William Shatner takes over the series. But that being said, so Star Trek: The Next Generation theme. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Did you end up going with Next Generation?
Yeah, Next Generation is definitely.
Okay.
I like TNG.
I like Deep Space Nine, but I feel it's a little more. It's a more laid back theme, and which I think fits the show. But as far as just which theme is better, I like Next Generation more.
I don't remember the Next Generation theme. I mean, I watched a ton of episodes. I just don't remember.
It's very orchestral. It's very flowing.
Well, if you've watched Star Trek: The Motion Picture, you've seen it because that's they use the theme song from there.
It's a lot like the original, yeah. I don't know. I think the DS9 one might be better too. I mean, I can picture like the shot of Bajor and the station in the foreground and all that. And
it's funny, if I was picking my favorite intro, like the visuals, I think I would pick Deep Space Nine. But as far as the song, I like Next Generation better. Kale, you were talking about that the other day. Were you doing a rewatch Next Generation recently?
Yeah.
So, say words.
No, I think. Okay, I think I mentioned in another episode that I did admit that even though I like TNG better, I think it's more exciting. I will say that I think DS9 definitely has a lot of merit. Like, it is very interesting, and it's a lot more about dealing with interpersonal relationships and being diplomatic, as opposed to venturing out into some new area and just trying to resolve a situation in the moment.
Wow, you just sold me. Conflict resolution instead of space exploration.
By the way, there is actually, especially later on in DS9, there's actually a lot of space battles. Especially later on in the series, there might be more space battles in DS9 than there are on all the other Star Trek series, just because it's sort of backloaded with the battling in space. But
well, in DS9 feels very claustrophobic. Like you realize like there's other starships out there going places and doing things, but they are stuck in this situation that, you know, they have to try and diplomat themselves out of, and it's just...
In TNG, you just see this one ship, the Enterprise, going out and, you know, being very adventurous and brave and meeting new life and trying to negotiate with them and whatever. But DS9, like, all that stuff's already been established. You got all these different, species, interspecies relationships going on. And
ladies
maintain the peace. And I think that represents better the ideals that we should be striving for in the long run.
That being said, the Enterprise from Star Trek: The Next Generation looks badass. I love that ship. Anyway, enough about that. Brandon, what is your number 3?
You know, it's been a while since I saw this show, but I kind of got to thinking about it with their villains. I think Breaking Bad has one of the best intro songs out there. Like, it's I think there's probably kind of a central theme. Well, not entirely, but there's kind of a central theme to mine, is that they're all short and memorable, and Breaking Bad is one of those. Like, that, especially that last part, where it kind of breaks off into like the little hollow stick, as they hit it or whatever. I don't know what that's called, but it's really good and it sticks in my head, and you can turn that into like a ringtone pretty easily. I don't know. It's very good at kind of conveying. Like, I picture going down into a basement. It's kind of like sinister, but like a descent. I don't know. I like it a lot.
Well, that very much sort of fits the idea of the show, because it is a descent.
Yeah.
And I think you could describe that theme very much as quick and dirty. It's not very long, but it's very dirty. I don't know. What are you guys, Breaking Bad? Did you guys watch Breaking Bad?
I watched a little bit. I just don't remember the theme. So
I don't.
Let me play it for you real quick. Okay.
But I remember
censoring you right now.
Sorry.
Kale, you were saying?
Kale was
No, I said I really like the show. I just don't remember the theme, like Jim said.
I mean, the theme song, I don't think the theme song is more than 45 seconds or something like that. Like, it's really
maybe
short.
not even that. Yeah.
And if we ever do a show on favorite series finales, Breaking Bad is basically the opposite of Dexter as far as series finale goes.
Because he stands there and takes all the bullets.
No, well, first of all, spoilers. Second of all, no, I don't even mean the very.
Sorry, I spoiled the show from how many fucking years ago?
Well, and I have personal stories about Breaking Bad that are kind of interesting, but no, I think that Walt's journey, and especially his last conversation with Skyler, is, I think, geniusly written, because he's been saying this one thing this whole show, and he finally talks to Skyler at the end and kind of admits the truth. And I thought that was such a cool admission that, by the way, pissed off a ton of fanboys, because the fanboys despised Skyler because she wouldn't let him go off and be a drug dealer. And it's like, yeah, your wife's probably not going to be super excited you're a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Shocker.
It's maybe something you shouldn't support.
Right. Yeah, she's probably right to say you're...
Or whatever the fuck it was, and showed her all the bags of money.
Yeah, it's like, no, don't do that. Yeah, great show, great theme. Jim, what is your number 3?
It is another one without words, and it's an old show, but I think if you heard the theme, you'd know what show it went with, and that is Hawaii 5-0. It's not a show that I even watched I don't even remember watching very much of it at all, but man, the theme song, exactly.
Jim, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is sort of an example, and this will Kale, Jesus Christ.
You know what can do a twist in my head? Is Hawaii 5-0 and Magnum PI can get twisted in my head. Like, I can start off on Hawaii 5-0 and end on Magnum PI.
So I will, Jim, you've just got to let him tire himself out, basically.
He knows that
one. No, so Hawaii 5-0 came out. I said that I talked to Vanessa on the way in, and we were talking about these theme songs. And I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that one. Hawaii 5-0 was one of the ones that came up. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And I think there are about 3 other ones that I will talk about in honorable mentions that are very much going right alongside that show. I think there's a period of like, because that's like 70s, right? Like late 70s.
Yeah.
Or mid 70s, whatever. And there's like 3 or 4 other shows that were around the same time that all had these amazing theme songs that you don't, I think about as much today, which is a shame. But I don't know anything about the show, but it is a great theme song.
Cop show. It's in Hawaii. Has an awesome theme song.
That's all you need to know.
Pretty much it.
On air now.
As the Cops, it's in Hawaii. Theme song.
Cops in Hawaii.
I wish I had more to say, but it's a great choice, but I don't have anything with the show. Kale, what is your number 3?
Mahalo. It's my number 3. Veering away from cop shows. Butterfly in the sky.
I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Reading Rainbow.
Take a look, it's in a book, a
Reading Rainbow.
I would just like to point out that we included both LeVar Burton iconic television shows from the 80s, which I think is important. And I feel good about us for having done that.
He's being honored, actually.
He deserves it.
He's got kind of a Reading Rainbow-esque podcast where he just reads stories.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was Kunta Kinte.
So he's in an episode of Community where he comes on to meet Donald Glover's character. And like Donald Glover famously asked for a signed photo of LeVar Burton because he can't actually speak in LeVar Burton's presence. So when LeVar Burton's sitting there talking to him, he's just like the whole time. And if after a while, Donald Glover's character gets up and runs away. He's like, fine, more chicken for Kunta.
And he cried in the bathroom.
He's like, I just wanted a picture. Donald Glover is he's a kind of a comic genius, I think.
Andy's Childish Gambino for all the music listeners.
By the way, the boat that they give him when he leaves Community, spoiler alert from when we talk about Community, is Childish Tycoon. So it's a callback to his rap name, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know. Jim, Brandon, you guys
sound of Danny Glover, but nobody talks about that.
He is not related to Danny Glover at all.
What?
He is not related to Danny Glover at all.
What?
No, in no way whatsoever.
I've been misinformed this whole time. I didn't fucking use Wikipedia.
He's also not related to Crispin Glover either, to my knowledge. But nobody.
Well, I don't care about that. Wow, mind blown.
Brandon and Jim, you were alive in the 80s, so I'm assuming you probably caught.
Because in the video for Sweatpants, he talks about not being.
Stay on topic. We're on Reading Rainbow.
Jim,
great show, great theme.
Yeah, awesome show.
Recommend it.
Yeah, it's one of those things you don't see a lot of good. And again, we're not like Brandon, you might know, or Jim, you might know, since you guys have kids. But you don't see a lot of good educational programming, I think, these days, where it's like where it doesn't come off as kind of bullshit, just BS basically. And I think that was like good educational programming, like stuff some kids wanted to watch, like Mr. Rogers for that matter.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mr. Rogers is way up there.
We grew up in a golden age of that, socialist for kids programming, and
if you ever get a chance, by the way, Google or YouTube Mr. Rogers testifying before Congress. He has some really, really good testimony. And he wasn't a Marine. He wasn't a Marine sharpshooter. He was a seminary student.
I was going to say, when Sesame Street first came out, they were doing like 100 episodes a year, 200 episodes a year. And then it just went down and down and down. I don't know. If they're still doing it, I'm sure they're doing like 6 or 10 or 12 episodes a year now.
Although, to be fair, like 100 episodes a year is kind of crazy. Like that has got to be just really taxing on people.
Yeah, at the same time, have you seen Sesame Street? Like, how hard is it to throw an episode together? Anyway,
I bet it's harder than you think. It's one of the I'll bet it's harder than you think it is. Okay, so Brian, do you have any other thoughts on Reading Rainbow?
No, I don't know if there's this whole thing now where a lot of shows are being remade, which maybe isn't a bad idea, but I think it'd be neat if they could find the old tapes and put them up on somewhere, stream them on Hulu or something.
They might be. It's possible. So I'm going to go with my number 3, and I'm calling on Audible. I am changing my list. I had a show at number 3, which I might mention in honorable mentions if it comes up, but my heart isn't in it. It is a very good theme song, and these both are shows that come from HBO, otherwise known as the home box office. And I'm going for the one that my heart goes with, which is Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt.
Because I think Tales from the Crypt had just a great little like horror theme song. It is sort of like the comedy, semi-comedy version of the Twilight Zone. There were so many good shows. It was except they could show anything, so it was super bloody. But it was a very sort of tongue-in-cheek version of what the Twilight Zone was doing. And I think because of that, it totally worked. Plus, that John Kassir doing the voice of the Crypt Keeper, who is absolutely masterful. And it's like I'd love to just talk to John Kassir just so we could talk in the Crypt Keeper's voice. It's great. I don't know. Would you guys watch Tales from the Crypt? Brandon Kale, I know you watched it at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think I saw a little bit more Creep Show, and I saw the Tales from the Crypt movies more than the actual episodes.
But it's just a really solid, like, sort of driving little creepy theme. It's like you're like dun 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 dun. I don't know, Jim. Did you watch Tales from the Crypt?
I've not seen it.
Oh my God, how have you lived?
I know. I even have HBO.
Go back and watch it. Just turn it on just for the theme song because it's so good. And of course, John Kassir's Crypt Keeper laugh is part of the theme song, which is perfect. I don't know, Kale, did you watch Tales from the Crypt? Didn't you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Tales from the Crypt. Something along those same lines was Creep Show, which I only watched a couple of times. But yeah, Tales from the Crypt, that was on HBO. I watched that a few times.
I think I liked so Creep Show was not a show. It was like two movies. It was two like what do you call them? Movies where there's like 4 different sections. So it's sort of like a television show. I liked Tales from the Crypt better, although Creep Shows were good and they had a lot of big people. Like Stephen King was involved in Creep Show, and there's a whole bunch of other people involved in Creep Show. But I don't know. Tales from the Crypt is it was like the tongue-in-cheek nature of it, where it was always kind of winking and nodding at the audience a little bit.
Well, the Crypt Keeper, I mean, having a steady character like a host or whatever of the show, I think is really appealing. Like that, like you're happy but like weirded out at the same time to see this guy.
And he was done really well, like practical effects wise. He was done really well, especially for a television show, because it was a practical thing. It wasn't animated. Although there was a Tales from the Crypt animated show on a cartoon show for kids, which I always thought was incredibly creepy because the Tales from the Crypt show was very, very much for adults,
Yeah.
In every sense of the word.
They made a book, didn't they?
Well, I mean, the Tales from the Crypt, that goes back to the EC Comics from the 1950s, the Comics Code Authority. And, Jim, do you remember the name of the creator who owned all of it?
Do not remember that.
He testified before Congress, and he was the one who's basically defending horror comics. And I'll think of his name at some point, but it's not coming to me right now. It'll be up at the bottom of the screen somewhere. But yeah, it was good stuff.
Beetlejuice. Like I'm trying to think of the Creep Show or not.
Well, if you're thinking Beetlejuice, I don't think you're thinking that far off. I think they do have some similarity between them. But Beetlejuice is sort of like a bigger theme, and Tales from the Crypt is more like kind of small and driving and creepy. But anyway, enough of me gushing. Brandon, what is your number 2?
Okay, so man, I'm really starting to get into ones that I can't decide what I want to be honorable mentions and not. For number 2, I guess I'm gonna go with Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of
Thrones, yeah, Game of fucking Thrones.
fucking Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones has one of the best orchestral entrance musics. It's one of those things, it's maybe the longest intro on my list, and it kind of doesn't matter, I can still watch it. But the Reigns of Castamere is an even better song from that show. I think the Reigns of Castamere is an even more iconic song than the intro, but both are pretty good.
There's a very snarky person on Twitter whose Twitter handle is "I bless the rains down in Castamere." By the way, Brandon, so the original one that I had at number 3 was Game of Thrones. And I have mental kickback on that show. I hated the last season so much, the last episode even more. That like,
what's it got to do with the intro though?
It doesn't.
You can't separate it,
but it does because it's in my head. And every time I think of Game of Thrones, I'm just like, fuck that show. So like, even though it's clearly a good theme, you are 100% right. It is a super great theme. And I always think about that remix, the fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones.
Peter Dinklage.
Thrones, yeah. Game of Thrones, yeah.
I watched Cicero, just so you guys know.
Serrano,
whatever the fuck his name
not
is.
Serrano. It's not a type of salami. Yes, Jim, Kale, Game of Thrones. Tell me why I'm wrong to have disincluded it.
I love the intro. It didn't make my list, but probably one of the most entertaining intros.
It's fucking Game of Thrones.
Just watching the little like the animatronic computer generated thing, and seeing how it changes. The flags
changed it up. They changed it up depending on what was happening in the episode. Yeah. I really like that.
My down ranking it is totally personal bias. I admit it 100%. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, yeah, I remember watching, like, get so excited during the intro. And then after watching the finale, I was like, no, I didn't even like that intro.
Mm-hmm. It's the same reason you didn't choose the original Star Trek.
Maybe. Kale, do you have any final thoughts on the Game of Thrones theme or anything Game of Thrones related?
Love the show, love the song. It's all good.
Sounds good. Jim, we are to your number 2.
Yes.
2.
And it is, I believe from previous conversations, a show you guys have never watched, but I could be wrong. WKRP in Cincinnati.
I'm at WKRP in Cincinnati.
Has
WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Jim, can you clarify something? Can turkeys fly?
No, they can't.
Les Nussman here.
Then there's the guy in the plaid leisure shirts. What's his name? Herb.
Yep.
Isn't that the guy that threw the turkeys out of the helicopter?
No. Herb was like he was like the Dan, what's his name from Night Court?
Oh, Dan Fielder.
Guy.
Yeah.
Because apparently in the 70s and 80s it was okay to have a character that was designated dirty pervy guy.
Because there's just always a pervert at work. Like, it's at least one who's just like in a...
Yeah, let's keep
that
it real.
Guy's going to assault you.
No, that's a good show. A solid cast, really, all the way around, I think, on that show.
Well, and then the guy, I mean, some of them went on to do other things, and some of them didn't. But, like, the guy that played Johnny Fever, I can't think of his name right now, Gordon something, I think, went on to do Head of the Class in the 80s.
Yep. London, who became Ricky.
Yeah.
He also, one of the characters went on to be Mike Hanlon in It. I think that was Venus Flytrap, wasn't it?
Could be.
It could be.
I think so.
I can picture that.
I think Venus Flytrap was before Head of the Class.
No, in the movie It, Kale, not Head of the Class.
What?
Stephen King book, It.
I've never heard of it.
Oh my God, you're a lunatic.
No, seriously? Okay, I will tell you this. On Saturday, so 4 days ago, I'm driving down Hickman Road. There is a blood red teddy bear on the side of the road. And it happens to be sitting over a storm drain. Just like somebody just dropped it there. And I'm like, I know there's a fucking clown down there. I know there's a fucking clown down there.
You should have brought that up during Breaking Bad.
I'm staying the fuck away from that teddy bear.
I will say there weren't a lot of Stephen King books that I read that I thought were actually scary. I thought it was actually scary.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Hold on. It wasn't Venus Flytrap. I was wrong. It was it was. No, it was Venus Flytrap. Tim Reed. Tim Reed.
Okay.
I know my WKRP in Cincinnati alum.
Very good.
Kale, why don't we move on to your number 2?
All right. If we're going to do our honorable mentions after this, then I will move on to my number 2.
Thank you.
Okay.
Big steaming number 2 for you.
Who does number 2 work for?
Jim, don't encourage him.
God damn it. Bill Nye, the Science Guy.
T minus 7 seconds.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill. Come on.
You're a lunatic.
That is such a fun song. And the reason that I like it is because it's a show that's teaching science to kids, and it's kind of along the same lines as Mr. Wizard. One of my honorable mentions.
I wasn't aware we were doing double honorable mentions.
It's double honor to but no, Bill Nye the Science Guy, man. Fucking, it's a great song.
Pretty good.
It's fun and it gets your attention, and he's teaching young people positive things. He's giving them knowledge. It's just basic things. I mean, it's not like saving the world, but is he?
I would just like to confirm that this is a safe space, and I can admit something.
Is Bill Nye?
I can admit something that is possibly embarrassing in front of my friends here. I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy.
I thought we were in the trust tree.
I literally don't. I know I've seen him on other things, like YouTube channels and other stuff like that, but I don't know. Because like when I was a kid, I watched Mr. Wizard. I remember Mr. Wizard.
Bill
I never watched Bill Nye. Brandon, what is your Bill Nye experience?
You better watch Bill Nye.
I think it's a great intro. I think he's right. I didn't watch like every episode of it or anything, but I thought it was a great intro.
He's definitely left. He's definitely green. He is definitely for helping people.
Yeah.
Like, he debates the Yahoo that built a fucking boat in the middle of fucking what?
Ken Ham.
You mean Moses?
Ken Ham. It wasn't a great debate, but yeah.
Moses, Noah, Jesus. I'm even getting my Bible stuff wrong.
Jesus did not build a boat.
Stand up. Whatever his fucking name is.
Did you just say Moses built a boat in Kentucky?
Well, maybe.
Somebody did.
I'm sorry. Do you have proof he didn't?
Right.
I don't.
I have
Jim,
proof.
Did you watch Bill Nye?
In the middle
I
of
neither watched Bill Nye nor
no fucking reason.
I did listen to Dr. Science on the radio, though.
Fair
It's
enough.
completely different. It's a topic for a different time.
I'm going to move on to my number 2. So this is my replace number 2 because some guy picked a sitcom in the 80s that had a very iconic theme. So I had to go ahead and replace it with what I think is possibly an even more iconic theme for an even more iconic 1980s television show. And that is, of course, Cheers.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
The on the surface greatest and right underneath that most sad television theme that I can picture, because like you listen to the lyrics of that song and people in that song aren't happy. Like nobody in that song's happy. Like that's a dark theme.
My parents.
Like that's like these are a bunch of guys that are just going to the bar every night to get loaded to forget about how much they hate their lives, which is just like, I can feel that a little bit.
I was a latchkey kid, so that song reminds me of my parents.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but
I got off my fucking job from the factory.
I was gonna say
I'm gonna go home and no, wait a minute. I'm gonna go to the bar for 6 hours.
Jim and Brandon, what are your Cheers experiences, either in real life or with the show?
It's a great theme song. I kind of feel like I have a love-hate relationship with the show. I feel like I watch episodes that I really like, and I watch other episodes that I think are really cringy.
Yeah,
and
there's some intimacy.
I always remember. I tried to show Vanessa Cheers, and she hated Shelley Duvall's character, and I sort of get it because her character is so cringy, and like they write her in such a not a real way. Like she's not a real character. It's just like she has to say all the things that make the bar guys angry, and she doesn't come off as real at all. I thought Kirstie Alley came off as much more like a legitimate character, even though she's now crazy.
She was a Vulcan.
Well, only for one movie.
One of my favorite lines from the show is Norm comes in and Woody Harrelson says, "What you up to, Mr. Peterson?" He says, my ideal weight if I was 7 feet tall."
Morning, everyone.
Hey! What are you up to, Norm?
My ideal weight if I were 11 feet tall.
I highly recommend you go and just Google the Norm enters the bar one-liners, because you can watch that. You can watch that for like an hour. Just the one line he says when he walks in. Oh, it's a very feel-good show. Even if the theme song, I'm telling you, the theme song is super depressing. It was super depressing.
Well, very realistic show.
And I don't remember particularly caring for Ted Danson back then, but yet I thought he was fantastic in The Good Place. So maybe Ted Danson just wasn't my cup of tea as a kid in the 80s, but
I just think that he and Shelley Duvall didn't have the chemistry they thought they did. I don't feel like their relationship ever really worked. And it's nothing against Shelley Duvall, the actress. Shelley Long. I keep saying Shelley Duvall. Oh my God. I was going to say,
I don't think that's the same woman as The Shining. Right. I don't think
Shelley Long. It's nothing against Shelley Long as an actress. I think she's a perfectly good actress. I just think they had her playing such a caricature that it wasn't really funny. It was just like she was kind of used as a punching bag. And it wasn't funny particularly.
Typical American women, always a punching bag.
Well, yeah, that to some degree. All right. So Brandon, what how many honorable mentions would you like to mention?
Okay. I'm just gonna go through them and see what you guys think. Friends, I think, is pretty iconic opening song.
What happened to your other arm?
What?
What happened to your other arm?
It's gone.
Okay.
He's Evil Jeff.
Friends, Laverne and Shirley, The A-Team, and The Simpsons, I think, are all fantastic opening theme songs. Like, I can hear each one of those in my head right now without looking it up.
I've heard of all those theme songs.
Especially The A-Team. That one I can get stuck in my head and on a loop.
Yeah. Jim, honorable mentions.
I'm going to limit my honorable mention. There's so many songs. I can't believe how many songs we've discussed, and I have almost crossed none of my list off from what you guys have said. The Rockford Files. It's a little bit unusual because it kind of changes musical style, but I love that. Love that tune.
Kale, you're a Rockford Files fan, weren't you?
What's that?
Kale, you're a Rockford Files fan, weren't you?
Fuck that.
You were too.
I watched Maverick.
I'm a James Garner fan.
Anyway.
Beverly Hillbillies.
You're the terrible Camaro.
Love the intro to that. Mission Impossible. Another iconic theme song with no lyrics, but anybody would probably recognize it. Mostly from the films, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is honorable mention is right behind me, Battlestar Galactica.
The 2000s version?
No.
The
1978 version, the real one.
It's not his fault that people stole his hairstyle.
Tyrion in space.
The bowl cut was very popular in the 70s.
It really was.
They must just have had a helmet they just put on your head and they were just kind of like zoop and you're done.
It was a Tupperware bowl.
All right, Gail, what are your honorable mentions?
Pinwheel spinning around. Elementary. Dun 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 dun. You know how it goes. This is Sherlock with
Clearly.
fucking Jason Lee Miller.
You're losing me here.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Johnny Lee Miller. Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I thought about that one.
Airwolf. SpongeBob.
Never heard of it.
You have to have heard that. I'm sorry. They're not good songs, but they get stuck in your fucking head. They just do.
Okay.
Oh, who lives in a pipe on a motor seat? SpongeBob
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he. If nautical nonsense be something you wish.
Burn notice too. Burn
Of
notice.
course is he, SpongeBob. If nautical nonsense is something you drop on the neck and flop like a flip.
Gail, I feel like I'm watching it. It's indistinguishable from the real thing.
It does.
All right, do you have any other honorable mentions you'd like to honorably mention?
No, I dishonorably mentioned all my honorably mentions.
All right, so I just want to mention a couple in rapid succession. One of which Jim already mentioned is so Vanessa mentioned Hawaii Five-0, which made me think of Peter Gunn and Dragnet, which are both like very like 70s cop show like things. Peter Gunn maybe even more because it's like I picture like spy like rah, 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 type of thing. So I don't like the singer particularly, but Monday Night Football is about as iconic as they come.
Yeah.
I hear that all his rowdy friends are coming over. Why are all his rowdy friends coming over on Monday night? Like, why wouldn't they come over on like Thursday or Friday?
He fell down a mountain and grew a beard to cover up all his scars.
Because his sedate friends come over on Tuesday night.
They just come over and just like kind of chill. And then the last three are Cops. I'm not a fan of the people, but the television show theme was very, very iconic. Batman the Animated Series. I didn't put that on my list because I feel like it's basically just the theme song from the Tim Burton movie. And because none of us have mentioned a game show, Jeopardy. Whether it's the actual main theme or the going into Final Jeopardy theme, like everybody has hummed that on multiple occasions because it's a great theme. So those are all my honorable mentions. So Brandon, what is your number one?
Doctor Who. The whole dun 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 dun. It's really good.
Which era is your favorite? Like the Tenet, probably.
I think Tenet as well. Tenet's one is a little more hard rock. I think it's got kind of a little grungier guitar to it. You can kind of almost headbang to it. I like it.
Fair enough. Jim, Caleb, you watched the Doctor Who is Who?
So he stole mine. Time Thief. But I will disagree. The 1970s theme is the creepiest and the best.
Do you think that he possibly got into his time machine, went back in time, realized what your number one was going to be, and then came back to steal it? I think that's probably what happened.
Absolutely. And the masters behind it.
I love to disagree with Brandon on anything, but I think Tennant's theme would probably be my number one. It just kind of is the one that I think about the most. Kale, you've watched a little Doctor Who here and there, haven't you?
I watched Tennant and Matthew
Smith.
and a little bit of the gray-haired guy that I can never remember his name.
Peter Capaldi.
Okay, and then they moved on to a woman. And nothing against the show.
Jodie Whittaker.
Nothing against anybody else. I kind of came in on Tenet like I was just joining the brigade at that point. And so I watched, and I thought Tenet did a really good job. And I watched a little bit of Smith, and I was like, okay, he's kind of like Tenet. And then I watched Capaldi, like, okay, that was kind of interesting. But then it kind of lost interest in it again. And like I said, I never really watched it before that.
So what's your favorite theme?
I knew it was there. I just, and I paid it respect, but it was never my thing.
So what's your favorite theme? Tenet?
I didn't even know there was a lot of difference. I'll say Tenet just because that's the show that I watched.
Fair enough. By the way, they also did a show called Adventures in Space and Time, which I liked a lot, which is sort of a dramatization of the first Doctor's William Hartnell's first couple of seasons, and it's very good. It's very good. So I guess that means we're around to Kale. What is your number one? Well, given Kale, given your experience with 80s cartoon theme songs, that song could be anything.
The Simpsons.
Kale, given your background, I thought it was going to be a different one.
No, like I don't know why. Like that one just always comes up in my head. Like when I think of theme songs, it's the most memorable. It's not like because I chose it. It just that's the one that's stuck in my brain like a buzzsaw just going off. Like that is the one, the Simpsons theme song.
Hopefully not exactly like a buzzsaw, because that would be very painful.
So
no, I get it. I think The Simpsons is a really iconic. I mean, it's the one that that's like almost a generational theme. That show's been on for so long that it's like people are watching it with their kids, that are watching it with their grandkids, that all watched that show growing up. I mean, the show's been on what season? Are they up to like season like 30 or?
I don't even know. I don't even watch the show. I don't even watch the show that much. That's the thing. I just know the song. I know it that well. It's just part of my life that much.
Can I nominate an exit song before we get done?
I'll allow it.
No, for later.
I'll do it now if you want. Red Dwarf.
Go ahead and do the thing.
Red Dwarf's exit song. Didn't really do an intro song, but the exit song that I want to
outside, there's no kind of atmosphere. I'm all alone, more or less.
Yeah,
yes.
It's fantastic. Love it. Very memorable.
I think we could easily do a whole show on Red Dwarf because Red Dwarf is.
And we will.
That being said, I will move on to my number one. And since it's the last, obviously it's the best. And that is, of course, X-Men, the animated series. The best introduction ever. It's perfect. There can never be anything better than it. You just want to go na-na-na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na. And it's so funny. One of the times, sort of after Vanessa and I had been together for a while, we got to talking about cartoons for whatever reason, and she was watching it, but she watched it in Spanish, where they would interrupt with the names of each characters, but in Spanish. And so it'd be like La Tormente, like in the very like deep like Mexican announcer voice, like La Bestio. And it's just as good, by the way. I'm not sure if it adds anything, but it definitely doesn't take anything away. Yeah, and I love that show. It's such a good cartoon show. It's like a show. The first time where you saw somebody taking a comic book and putting it on screen in a way that was not the same as the comic book because it's a different medium, but it felt the same. It had the same impact, and it had Brandon's favorite character, Apocalypse. And just,
I think it introduced people to the X-Men who were never going to read the comic book.
Yeah, and that was the time where X-Men was huge. I mean, that cartoon comes out, I think, in like 92 or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Jim, do you watch the X-Men show? Because you would have been already, like 35, 40 years old when that show came out.
82, something like, yeah. I was not watching too many cartoons, although I was watching The Tick at that time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you were still watching some cartoons. Did you watch the X-Men TV show or the X-Men animated series at that point?
I did not watch it at that point.
Oh, man, you're so missing out. Such a good show. Kale, what are your thoughts on the X-Men animated show?
Well, Brandon introduced me to the character Apocalypse on the X-Men animated series.
And Brandon, what is your favorite line from Apocalypse?
I am as far beyond humans as the mutants are beyond you. Or what the fuck? It was fun.
I am as far beyond mutants as they are beyond you.
That is pretty much it.
You do it. You do it. I fucked it all up. God damn it.
If you find that one on YouTube,
Mike,
you should put that one in there.
I will see, depending on what the YouTube gods say. Because YouTube is perfect and they never make any mistakes. It must be my mistake.
Apparently, Verizon makes mistakes because if you use one of their hotspots for your Wi-Fi,
they shut you down.
Has there ever been a more perfect place to pause?
You're proving my point.
Kale, you don't need to say anything else. Kale, you literally don't need to say anything else because your point was made very clearly.
Yes.
If you mock Verizon, they will freeze up your internet.
Don't put it in direct play. Fuck it up.
All right, that's it for this week. Next week, we're going to do something else. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And have a good drink. And have a good day. Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculine, where we talk about drinking culture, pop culture. Just fucking ran out of steam.